We're seeing even more party supporters gathering and converging outside the Ashlands building, but there remain police cordons in place, and as I said before, a heightened police presence. They've put new security features in place here at the Ashlands building. We've seen the installation of a scanner, and persons entering the building are being scanned. There are several government ministers and other senior members of the coalition standing at the entrance of the building. We are still not sure what is happening inside the building. The building also houses the media center, but the media has been prevented by the police and private security from entering the building.